The massive chamber stretched out like a metal canyon, its walls rising so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Thousands of seats filled the space, each one designed for a different alien species. Some seats hung from chains for the floating ethereals. Others were filled with thick liquid for the aquatic depths. In the very back corner, almost hidden behind a support beam, sat the human delegation. Ambassador Sarah Chen adjusted her formal blue uniform and tried not to show her frustration. 300 years. That was how long humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. 3 centuries of following every rule, signing every treaty, and proving their worth over and over again. Yet here they sat, in the worst seats in the house, still treated like children at the adults' table. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber. His body looked like living crystal, tall and thin, catching the light and throwing rainbows across the walls when he moved. His voice came through the translation system in perfect, cold English. "Today we discuss the continued containment of the human species," he announced. The word containment hit Sarah like a slap. Around the chamber, various aliens made sounds of agreement. Some clicked their mandibles. Others flashed colored lights. The snake-like hegemony, representatives hissed their approval. Shre gripped the arms of her chair tighter. Containment, as if humans were some kind of disease that needed to be kept in check. The humans continued to show their primitive nature, the Chancellor continued. Their aggressive expansion into the Outer Rim territories proves they cannot be trusted with unlimited freedom. Their reckless mining operations damage ecosystems. Their rapid breeding threatens resource stability. A Veronian delegate raised one of his 6 arms. His purple skin gleamed under the chamber lights. The humans also refuse to follow proper protocols for first contact with new species. They insist on direct communication rather than council-approved intermediaries. Sarah wanted to laugh. Direct communication. What a terrible crime. She remembered the last first contact mission. The humans had spent 3 days learning the new species' language and customs. The council's approved method would have taken 6 months and 3 different translator species. Furthermore, the Chancellor's crystal form darkened. Human military vessels continued to patrol beyond their assigned sectors. This aggressive behavior cannot be tolerated. That was too much. Sarah shot to her feet. Those patrols saved the Altarian colonies from the Void Plague. Human ships were the only ones willing to risk infection to deliver medical supplies. The chamber fell silent. Speaking without permission was a serious breach of protocol. The Chancellor's body flashed angry red. "Ambassador Chen, you will remain seated and speak only when recognition is granted." Sarah stayed standing. "Those same human ships held the line against the Scourge while your fleets ran away. Human soldiers died protecting worlds that aren't even ours." "Sit down," the Chancellor commanded, his voice echoing through the translation systems in a dozen languages. Sarah remained standing, but she sat down slowly. Her hands shook with anger. Around her, the other human delegates looked pale but determined. They had all heard this same speech before. Humans were too aggressive, too reckless, too primitive. Never mind that human fusion technology powered half the galaxy. Never mind that human agricultural techniques fed billions of aliens. Never mind that human doctors had created the cures for 17 different plagues. The Chancellor resumed his speech as if nothing had happened. "The Council has reached a decision regarding the Kepler sector colonies. Administrative control will be transferred to the hegemony, effective immediately." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The Kepler sector colonies were home to 12 million humans. They had been settled legally with full council approval over 50 years ago. These were not empty worlds. These were human homes, human schools, human families. "The hegemony has proven more capable of managing colonial affairs," the Chancellor explained. "Their methods are more civilized." The hegemony representative, a large serpent-like creature with golden scales, smiled with too many teeth. "We will ensure proper order is maintained in the Kepler colonies. The human residents will be relocated to more suitable territories." Relocated. Sarah felt sick. 12 million people, forced from their homes because the Council had decided humans could not govern themselves. She looked around the chamber at the aliens who had made this decision without even asking humanity's opinion. The same aliens who called for human help whenever there was trouble. The same aliens who used human technology and ate human-grown food and lived under the protection of human ships. The ethereal delegate floated higher in his bubble of light. Perhaps we should discuss the terms of relocation. The humans will need time to prepare for transport, like cargo, like animals being moved from one pen to another. Sarah stood up again. This time she did not wait for permission to speak. No, she said clearly. The word rang through the chamber like a bell. Every conversation stopped. Every translator fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the small human woman in the corner. The Chancellor's crystal body turned almost black with anger. Ambassador Chen, you will be silent or you will be removed from this chamber. No, Sarah said again, louder this time. She began walking toward the exit, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Each step echoed in the huge space. Where are you going? The Veronian delegate called out. Sarah did not stop walking. Behind her, the other human delegates stood up from their seats. Ambassador Rodriguez from Mars, Captain Thompson from the outer colonies, Dr. Nakamura from the research stations. All of them followed her toward the massive doors. Ambassador Chen, you cannot simply leave in the middle of a council session. The Chancellor's voice followed her. Sarah reached the doors and turned around one last time. The entire chamber stared at her. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species, all looking shocked that a human would dare to walk away. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council, she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. We rescind all treaties, all agreements, and all obligations as of this moment. The chamber erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet, waved tentacles, flashed warning colors, and shouted in languages the translators could not keep up with. Through the chaos, Sarah heard individual voices. The trade agreements. The fusion reactors. The shipping lanes. The food supplies. Sarah smiled for the first time in months. You wanted to treat us like primitives, she called over the noise. Now you will learn why that was a mistake. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Sarah walked through them without looking back. The other human delegates followed her. As the doors closed behind them, cutting off the angry voices from the chamber, Sarah felt something she had not felt in years. Freedom. Behind them, in the chaos of the chamber, the aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had just lost. The species they had dismissed as primitive controlled the shipping that moved goods between worlds. The species they had called aggressive maintained the fusion reactors that powered their cities. The species they had wanted to contain grew the food that fed billions. The humans were walking away. And for the first time in 300 years, they were walking away as equals. The universe was about to learn what happened when humanity decided it had had enough. Sarah Chen walked down the long corridor outside the council chamber, her boots making sharp sounds on the metal floor. Behind her, the 6 other human delegates followed in silence. Through the walls, they could still hear the angry voices of thousands of aliens arguing inside the chamber. Did we really just do that? Asked Ambassador Rodriguez, his voice barely above a whisper. We did, Sarah replied without slowing down. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was clear. For the first time in years, she knew exactly what needed to be done. They reached the human embassy section of the massive space station. The corridors here were smaller, designed for human proportions rather than the huge aliens who dominated the rest of the station. Sarah's aide, Lieutenant Jackson, was waiting for them with a worried expression. Ma'am, we're getting emergency calls from the council representatives. They want to schedule an immediate meeting to discuss. No meetings, Sarah cut him off. Get me a secure line to Earth, presidential priority. Yes, ma'am. Sarah turned to the other delegates. Contact your home worlds. All of them. Mars, the Belt Colonies, the Outer Rim territories. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we're free. Dr. Nakamura, a small woman with gray hair, looked nervous. Sarah, do you realize what we've just done? The economic consequences alone will be their problem, not ours, Sarah finished. How much of their technology depends on human fusion reactors? About 60% of the core worlds, Dr. Nakamura admitted. And their food supply? 40% comes from human agricultural worlds. Shipping? Captain Thompson, a gruff man with scars from the Scourge War, grinned. 80% of inter-system cargo goes through human-controlled space routes. Sarah nodded. Then they need us more than we need them. The secure communication system activated. President Martinez appeared on the screen, his dark hair messy as if he had been woken up. Behind him, Sarah could see the familiar walls of the Oval Office on Earth. Sarah, what the hell is happening? I'm getting reports that you walked out of the council session. We withdrew. Mr. President, completely as of 2 hours ago, Humanity is no longer part of the Galactic Council. The president's face went pale. Jesus Christ. Sarah, you can't make that decision without... They voted to give our colonies to the hegemony, Sarah interrupted. 12 million humans in the Kepler sector. They were going to relocate them like cattle. The president was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Sarah could see aides rushing around with papers and data tablets. What are our options? The president finally asked. We enforce the withdrawal, Sarah said firmly. All human ships leave council space. All trade agreements are void. All technology transfers stop immediately. The fusion reactors? We control the maintenance codes. Without our technicians, they'll start failing within weeks. The agricultural exports? We stop all shipments to non-human worlds. The president rubbed his forehead. Sarah, this could start a war. No. Captain Thompson stepped forward. Mr. President, with respect, we've been at war for 300 years. They just called it diplomacy. Sarah nodded. Sir, we have the strongest military in the galaxy. We have the most advanced technology. We control the resources they need to survive. The only reason we've been sitting in the corner like children is because we chose to follow their rules. And now we make our own rules. The president looked at the faces of the 7 delegates on his screen. These were not rebels or revolutionaries. These were career diplomats and scientists and military officers. People who had dedicated their lives to making the council system work. I need to talk to Congress, he said finally. But Sarah, if we're doing this, we do it right. No half measures. Understood, sir. The communication ended. Sarah turned to her team. Jackson, I want a message sent to every human ship in space. Military and civilian. They are to leave council space immediately and return to human territory. Ma'am, that's over 10,000 vessels. Then we better get started. Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's withdrawal began almost immediately. On Altair Prime, the massive fusion reactor that powered the planet's capital city suddenly displayed a warning message in English. Maintenance access denied. Human technician authorization required. The Altarian administrator, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, stared at the screen in confusion. He had never seen this message before in 20 years of operation. On the trade station orbiting Vega 7, human freighter captains received identical messages on their personal communicators. Emergency recall. All human vessels return to Terran space immediately. No exceptions. Captain Lisa Wong of the cargo ship New Shanghai read the message twice before believing it. She looked out at her cargo hold, filled with rare minerals bound for the core worlds. Without hesitation, she changed course for home. In the council chambers, the arguing had not stopped. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood in the center, his crystal body flashing angry colors as representatives from dozens of species shouted at him. You must bring them back, demanded the Veronian delegate. Our trade agreements are worth trillions of credits. The fusion reactors, called out an ethereal, his voice high and musical. What happens when they fail? The shipping lanes, hissed a hegemony representative. Half our cargo routes go through human space. The Chancellor raised his hands for silence. The humans are bluffing. They would not dare actually leave. Their economy depends on us as much as ours depends on them. But even as he spoke, reports were coming in. Human ships were disappearing from scanner screens across the galaxy. Cargo deliveries were being canceled. Most worrying of all, the automated systems that maintained fusion reactors on hundreds of worlds were starting to show error messages. On Earth, President Martinez addressed an emergency session of Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, for 300 years we have tried to be good neighbors. We have followed their rules, honored their treaties, and bled for their causes. Today they decided to take our colonies away from us without even asking our opinion. The chamber was packed. Every representative was present, along with military leaders and cabinet members. The question before us is simple, the president continued. Do we accept being treated as second-class citizens forever, or do we choose independence? Senator Williams from New Texas stood up. Mr. President, what are the risks? War is possible, the president admitted. Economic disruption is certain, but we have advantages they don't know about. General Harrison, head of the Terran Defense Force, stepped forward. For 50 years, we've been building our military under the assumption that we might someday need to defend ourselves against the Council. We're ready. What about allies? Asked Congresswoman Park. President Martinez smiled for the first time that day. We're already getting communication requests from 17 non-council species. Apparently, we're not the only ones who are tired of being pushed around. The vote was unanimous. Across human space, the reaction was swift and powerful. On Mars, crowds gathered in the domed cities to cheer. In the asteroid belt, miners stopped sending ore to alien worlds and began stockpiling it for human use. On the frontier colonies, families who had lived in fear of council interference finally felt safe. The message was clear. Humanity was done being junior partners in someone else's galaxy. The universe was about to change, and for the first time in centuries, humans would be the ones making the rules. 3 days after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, the first fusion reactor failed. It happened on Zephyr Prime, the crystal being's most important world. The massive reactor that powered their capital city simply shut down without warning. Emergency power kept the lights on, but barely. Within hours, similar failures began happening across the galaxy. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching her fleet complete its withdrawal from Council space. Through the massive windows, she could see dozens of human warships moving in perfect formation toward the edge of the solar system. "Status report," she commanded. Her tactical officer, Commander Park, looked up from his display. "All human vessels have cleared Council territory, Admiral. The last transport left Rigel Station 20 minutes ago." Elena nodded. "Any pursuit?" "No, ma'am. Council forces are staying in their own space." That was smart of them. Elena's fleet represented only 1/10 of humanity's military power, but it was still enough to destroy any Council force that tried to stop them. The aliens had always underestimated human military technology, assuming that a primitive species could not match their ancient civilizations. They were wrong. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from Earth. President Martinez wants to speak with you." Elena's image appeared on the main screen moments later. President Martinez looked tired but determined. "Elena, I need you to establish the blockade immediately." "Understood, sir." "Which systems?" "All of them. No Council ships enter human space. No human goods leave for alien worlds. We're cutting them off completely." Elena smiled grimly. "What about the hegemony trade routes?" "Especially those. I want their economy to hurt." The president's expression became serious. "Elena, I'm not going to lie to you. This could lead to war. Are your people ready?" Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was young and old from Earth and Mars and the outer colonies, but they all had the same expression in their eyes. They were tired of being pushed around. "We've been ready for a long time, Mr. President." On the agricultural world of New Eden, farmer Tom Bradley received the evacuation order while harvesting his grain fields. His crops fed 3 billion aliens across 12 different worlds. Now those same aliens would have to find food somewhere else. Tom shut down his harvesting machines and loaded his family onto the transport ship. As they lifted off, he looked down at his fields. The grain would rot in the ground rather than feed the beings who had treated humanity like children. "Are we really doing this, Dad?" asked his teenage daughter. "We sure are, honey, and it's about time." Across the galaxy, the effects were spreading like wildfire. On Veronia, the purple-skinned aliens watched their industrial output drop by 60% as human-maintained factories went offline. On Altair Prime, rolling blackouts began as the fusion power grid failed system by system. But the real panic started when the shipping stopped. Captain Maria Santos of the cargo ship Spirit of Luna was typical of thousands of human freighter crews. For 30 years, she had carried goods between alien worlds, following Council shipping regulations, paying alien taxes, and keeping the galactic economy running. Now she was heading home to Earth, her cargo hold empty. "Captain," her navigator asked, "what about our contracts?" "Void," Maria replied. "All of them. Council law says non-member species can't trade in Council space." Her navigator looked confused. "But we're not non-members." "We just left," Maria grinned. "Exactly. We're free traders now. We make our own rules." In the Council chambers, emergency sessions ran around the clock. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood before a much smaller group of representatives. Many species had sent their ambassadors home to deal with the crisis. "The situation is critical," the Chancellor announced, his crystal body flickering with stress patterns. 17 worlds are experiencing power failures. Food shortages are beginning on 12 more. Our shipping network has collapsed. The Veronian delegate waved his 6 arms frantically. My homeworld's industrial production is down 70%. We need those human technicians back immediately. The humans are not responding to our communications, reported an ethereal. We have sent diplomatic messages, trade offers, even apology requests. They ignore them all. The Chancellor's body darkened. Primitives do not ignore the Galactic Council. These primitives control our power grid, the hegemony representative hissed. Perhaps we should reconsider our definition of primitive. But the worst news was yet to come. Chancellor, a junior aide rushed into the chamber. We have reports from the Rim territories. 3 new species have declared independence from Council protection. They say they want to join something called the Terran Cooperative. The Chancellor felt his crystal structure begin to crack under stress. What is the Terran Cooperative? The aide's translation implant stuttered. It appears to be a new alliance formed by the humans. They are offering membership to any species that wants equal representation and shared technology. The terms of membership were simple and revolutionary. Every species got an equal vote regardless of size or age. Technology would be shared freely between members. Military protection would be provided to all member worlds. Most importantly, there would be no senior species and no junior species. Everyone would be equal partners. Within a week, 6 more species applied for membership. On Earth, President Martinez met with his cabinet in the White House Situation Room. The walls were covered with displays showing the spreading crisis across Council space. The economic damage to the Council is severe, reported Treasury Secretary Chen. Their industrial output has dropped by half. Food shortages are beginning on 23 worlds. What about our own economy? Asked the president. Actually improving, Chen replied with surprise. Keeping our goods for ourselves has lowered prices across human space. Our factories are running at full capacity for the first time in decades. Defense Secretary Johnson leaned forward. Mr. President, we're also getting military intelligence that suggests the Scourge are massing at the Galactic Rim. Without our early warning networks, the Council has no idea they're coming. The President was quiet for a moment. The Scourge were a nightmare from the edge of the galaxy, machine beings that consumed entire worlds and turned them into more machines. Humanity had fought them before and won, but only barely. Do we warn them? Asked Secretary of State Williams. No, the President said firmly. They chose to treat us as enemies. Let them face the consequences. But the humans were not completely heartless. When the first Scourge scout ships attacked a small Council world, a human patrol fleet happened to be nearby. They could have let the aliens die. Instead, they fought. The battle was short and brutal. Human ships with their advanced weapons and tactics destroyed the Scourge scouts easily. But when the grateful aliens tried to thank them, the human captain's response was cold. We didn't do this for the Council. We did it because the Scourge are everyone's enemy. Next time, don't count on our help. The message was clear. Humanity would protect itself and its allies. The Council was on its own. In the depths of space, more ships were moving. The first new members of the Terran Cooperative were sending delegates to Earth. Small species that had been ignored by the Council. Young civilizations that had been treated as inferiors. Even some individual groups from Council species who wanted something better. The galaxy was changing. The old order of ancient species ruling over younger ones was cracking. In its place, something new was growing. Something built on equality rather than hierarchy. The humans had walked away from the table where they were not wanted. Now they were building their own table. And everyone was invited to sit as equals. 2 months after humanity left the Galactic Council, Chancellor Zethvar stood in his private office looking out at the dying city below. Zephyr Prime, once the shining capital of galactic civilization, was barely functioning. Streets that should have glowed with crystal light were dark. The great towers that had stood for millennia were running on emergency power. His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kethalon, approached carefully. The Chancellor's stress patterns had been dangerous lately, his crystal body flashing angry reds and desperate yellows. Chancellor, the morning reports, Kethalon said. Extending a data crystal, Zethvar absorbed the information and felt his structure dim. Read them aloud. I want to hear how bad it is. Kethalon's voice wavered. 17 more worlds have joined the Terran Cooperative this week. Industrial output across Council space is down 81%. Food riots have begun on Altair. Prime. The Veronian government has fallen after their people discovered how much wealth the Council was taking in taxes. Continue. The humans are now trading with 43 species outside the Council. They have established what they call friendship stations at the borders of their space. Any species can dock there and request membership in their cooperative. Sethvar felt something he had never experienced in his long life: desperation. For 3,000 years, his people had led the galaxy. They had built the Council, created the laws, and maintained order among the younger species. Now that order was crumbling, and it was all because of one species they had dismissed as primitive. What about our military response options? Kethlon's crystal form flickered nervously. General Vexmar reports that our fleet strength is down 60%. Many of our ships were human-maintained. Without their technicians, the vessels are unreliable. And their military? Intelligence suggests the humans have been preparing for this possibility for decades. Their ship designs are completely different from what we expected. Faster, more heavily armed, and using technology we do not understand. The Chancellor walked to his window again. In the distance, he could see the spaceport where a small crowd had gathered. Even on Zephyr Prime, some individuals were requesting passage to human space. The appeal of the Terran Cooperative was spreading like a virus. The door chimed. "Enter," Zethvar commanded. 3 figures walked in: the Veronian emergency representative, an ethereal diplomat, and most surprisingly, a hegemony military commander. All of them looked desperate. "Chancellor," the Veronian spoke first, his 6 arms gesturing frantically.
"My people are starving."
"Our industrial cities are shutting down. We need human fusion technology to restart our power grid." The ethereal floated higher, his light dim with worry. "The economic projections are catastrophic. Without human shipping, interstellar trade has dropped 90%. Entire sectors of space are becoming isolated." But it was the hegemony commander who delivered the worst news. "Chancellor, we have a bigger problem. Our early warning systems in the Rim territories have detected massive Scourge fleet movements. They are heading toward Council space." Zethvar felt his crystal body crack slightly. The Scourge. Ancient enemies from the galaxy's edge. Machines that turned living worlds into more machines. The Council had faced them before, but always with human help. How large is the fleet? Unknown. Our sensors cannot penetrate their jamming, but preliminary estimates suggest it is the largest Scourge force ever assembled. What about our defensive preparations? The hegemony commander's scaled head drooped. "Without human early warning networks, we are essentially blind. Without human fusion reactors, many of our defensive platforms are offline. Without human ships..." He didn't finish the sentence. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what was not being said. The Council's military had always depended on human support. Human ships were faster and more aggressive. Human soldiers fought harder. Human technology was often the edge that won battles. Now they were alone. Kethlon spoke quietly. "Chancellor, perhaps it is time to consider reconciliation." Zethvar's body flashed angry red. "The Galactic Council does not apologize to primitives." "They are not primitives," the ethereal said softly. "They never were. We just called them that because they were younger than us." The truth hung in the air like a blade. The humans had never been primitive. They had been innovative, aggressive, and willing to take risks that the older species avoided. They had solved problems that had stumped galactic civilization for centuries. They had fought wars that others would not fight and made sacrifices that others would not make. The Council had labeled them primitive not because they lacked technology or intelligence, but because they did things differently. "What are you suggesting?" Zethvar asked. The Veronian delegate stepped forward. "We send an apology mission to Earth. We acknowledge our mistakes and request renewed partnership." "On what terms?" "Theirs," the ethereal replied simply. "We are no longer in a position to negotiate." Meanwhile, on Earth, President Martinez sat in the Oval Office reading the latest reports from across the galaxy. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had never spoken to each other were now trading freely through human space. Technology was being shared at an unprecedented rate. The Terran Cooperative was growing stronger every day. "Mr. President," his aide announced, "Admiral Vasquez is here with the latest military briefings." Elena Vasquez entered with a confident stride. "Mr. President, I have good news and bad news. Give me the bad news first. The Scourge are definitely coming. Our deep space scouts estimate a force of over 10,000 ships. It's the largest invasion fleet in galactic history." Martinez felt his stomach tighten. "And the good news?" Elena smiled. "We're ready for them. The cooperative fleet now includes ships from 23 different species. Our combined military is stronger than anything the galaxy has ever seen. What about the Council? They're sending desperate messages asking for our help. Apparently, their defensive grid is failing and they can't see the scourge coming. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Despite everything, he felt no satisfaction in the Council's desperation. What do you recommend, Admiral? We help them, Elena said without hesitation. Not because we owe them anything, but because the scourge are everyone's enemy. If they overwhelm Council space, they'll come for us next. On what terms? Elena's smile became sharp. Complete military command. If we're going to save them, we do it our way. The President nodded. Make it clear that this is a one-time offer. After we deal with the scourge, we go back to being separate entities unless they want to discuss joining the cooperative as equals. Elena saluted. Understood, sir. As the Admiral left, Martinez looked out at the Washington skyline. In the distance, he could see the construction cranes building the new cooperative headquarters. Representatives from dozens of species would soon be working side by side, making decisions together as equals. The old galaxy was dying. The new one would be built on very different principles. The humans had walked away from a table where they were not wanted. Now the universe was discovering that they had been the ones holding everything together. Soon everyone would have to choose: join the new order as equals or face the future alone. 6 months after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the same chamber where it all began. But everything was different now. The massive amphitheater that once held thousands of alien representatives now felt empty and cold. Only 23 species remained in the Council, down from the original 47. The rest had either joined the Terran Cooperative or declared complete independence. Sarah wore the same blue uniform, but now it carried new insignia. The golden star of the Terran Cooperative surrounded by smaller stars representing their 31-member species. She was no longer a junior ambassador begging for scraps of respect. She was the primary representative of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. The remaining council members sat in a much smaller circle, their previous arrogance replaced by something that looked like fear. Chancellor Zethvar stood at the center, his crystal body dim and flickering with stress patterns. His voice, when he spoke, lacked the commanding tone Sarah remembered. Ambassador Chen, he began carefully. The Galactic Council requests to open formal negotiations with the Terran Cooperative regarding a mutual defense pact. Sarah smiled. Not the diplomatic smile she had worn for centuries of humiliation, but something with teeth. The Terran Cooperative is willing to discuss terms. As equals. The word equals echoed through the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Veronian representative's purple skin had turned pale gray. The ethereal delegates floated lower, their light dimmed with defeat. Of course, Chancellor Zethvar said quickly, as equals. Sarah activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with charts and data. These are our terms. First, formal recognition that the Terran Cooperative is a sovereign alliance with equal standing to the Galactic Council. The Chancellor's crystal form flickered. In the old days, the Council would never have recognized any organization as their equal. They were the ancient powers, the founders of galactic civilization. But those days were over. Second, Sarah continued, reparations for 3 centuries of economic exploitation. Our economists calculate that the Council extracted approximately 14 trillion credits in wealth from human space through unfair trade agreements and taxation. The hegemony representative hissed in alarm. 14 trillion? That is impossible. Our records are very detailed, Sarah replied coolly. We've had 300 years to keep track of every credit you took from us. She moved to the next section of her presentation. Third, formal recognition of all Terran Cooperative territorial claims, including the Kepler sector colonies you attempted to steal. Chancellor Zethvar's body darkened. The Kepler decision was made according to proper council procedures. The Kepler decision was made without consulting the people who actually lived there, Sarah interrupted. That ends now. The cooperative recognizes the right of all beings to self-determination. The chamber fell silent. The concept of self-determination was revolutionary. For millennia, the Council had decided the fate of species and worlds without asking their opinion. The idea that people should choose their own government was dangerous to the old order. Fourth, Sarah continued, Acknowledgement that the Terran Cooperative reserves the right to protect its member species from aggression by any source, including the Council. The threat was clear. If the Council tried to bully any cooperative member the way they had bullied humanity, they would face the full might of the Alliance. As Sarah spoke, reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy. The transformation was remarkable and complete. The Altarian system had formally requested cooperative membership after their government collapsed from power failures. The request had been approved unanimously, and human engineers were already restoring their fusion grid. On Veronia, the new democratic government had signed a friendship treaty with the cooperative. In exchange for technology and trade agreements, they would provide rare minerals and industrial expertise. Most shocking of all, individual groups within Council species were requesting asylum in cooperative space. Zephyrian crystals who wanted freedom from their rigid hierarchy, young ethereals who dreamed of exploring beyond their traditional boundaries, even some hegemony citizens who were tired of their government's aggressive policies. The brain drain was devastating the Council. Their best scientists, engineers, and thinkers were leaving for the promise of equality and opportunity. These terms are... Chancellor Zethvar paused, his crystal structure cracking slightly under stress. Acceptable, Sarah nodded. Excellent. Now, regarding the Scourge threat. The mention of the ancient enemy caused a ripple of fear through the remaining Council members. For weeks, reports had been coming in of massive machine fleets massing at the galaxy's edge. The largest Scourge invasion in history was approaching, and without human early warning networks, the Council was blind to their movements. The cooperative fleet will assist in the defense of Council space, Sarah announced, under cooperative command with Council forces serving in support roles. The hegemony representative reared up in anger. You expect us to take orders from humans? Sarah's expression didn't change. You expect us to die for beings who called us primitives for 3 centuries? The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood the new reality. The cooperative had the strongest military in the galaxy. Their fusion technology was generations ahead of anyone else's. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their tactics more innovative. If the Council wanted to survive the Scourge invasion, they needed the cooperative more than the cooperative needed them. We accept, Chancellor Zethvar said quietly. As the negotiations continued, Sarah thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been treated like children, dismissed and ignored despite their contributions. Now the galaxy's most powerful species were agreeing to terms dictated by those same primitives. But the real change wasn't in the power balance. It was in the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The old system had been based on age and hierarchy. Ancient species ruled over younger ones. Large empires dominated smaller neighbors. Power was concentrated in the hands of a few. The cooperative was built on different principles. Every member species got an equal vote, regardless of size or age. Technology was shared freely. Military protection was provided to all. Decisions were made democratically, not by decree. It was messy and sometimes slow, but it worked. And more importantly, it was fair. The negotiations concluded with the signing of the Treaty of Terra, named for humanity's homeworld. For the first time in galactic history, a formal document acknowledged that all species were equal partners in the galaxy. As the Council representatives filed out of the chamber, many looking defeated, Sarah remained behind with her staff. Through the vast windows of the space station, she could see the stars themselves seemed different. Where once there had been rigid boundaries and ancient hierarchies, now there was something humanity had always brought wherever they went: the possibility of change. Ma'am, her aide asked, what do we do now? Sarah smiled as she watched a cooperative ship dock at the station. Its crew would include humans, Altarians, Veronians, and a dozen other species working together as equals. Now we build something better, she said. Something that will last. The universe had indeed trembled when humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. But what emerged from that trembling was stronger than what had come before. The old order of ancient powers ruling over younger species was gone forever. In its place was something new. A galaxy where being different was not a weakness but a strength, where age did not determine worth, and where every being had the right to stand as an equal among the stars. The humans had walked away from a table where they were not wanted. Now they had built a new table, and everyone was invited to sit as equals. The universe would never be the same.